Direct News TV. June 29, 2023. Russia-Ukraine War, List of Key Events, Day 491. At least 2 people killed in attack in Kherson, Governor. At least 2 people were killed and 2 others injured during a Russian attack on a point of invisibility shelter in Kherson, the local governor reported. On Telegram, Oleksandr Prokudin wrote, another Russian terrorist attack took the lives of peaceful Kherson residents. In the afternoon, the occupiers shelled the point of invincibility in Kherson. Terrorists struck a place where civilians had come to receive humanitarian aid. 2 townspeople died, 2 others are in the hospital in a moderate condition, he said. Kremlin weighs in on Biden's Iraq-Ukraine slip-up. The Kremlin says it hoped that U.S. President Joe Biden had meant to say Ukraine rather than Iraq when he made a verbal slip-up on Wednesday. Speaking to reporters in Washington, Biden was asked if a Wagner rebellion had weakened Putin. It's hard to tell, really. But he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home and he has become a bit of a pariah around the world, Biden had said. Asked to comment on Biden's slip-up, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "We are interested in this, we are monitoring the situation very carefully, and we hope that Mr. President had Ukraine in mind during yesterday's statement." EU leaders gathered to discuss Wagner mutiny. European Union leaders gathered to discuss the aborted Wagner mutiny and debate their long-term role in bolstering Ukraine's security. We have to prepare ourselves that this can last for a long time, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz told reporters at a summit in Brussels. It's important that we consult and say we're ready to hold on for the long term, with financial and humanitarian support that's necessary for Ukraine but also when it comes to weapons, he said. Several European leaders said they would be keeping a close eye on Belarus, where Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin has been exiled. Others also said the mutiny had weakened Putin, but it did not mean the West could relax. A weakened Putin is a greater danger, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said. An unstable Russia becomes also a risk. Wagner troops will no longer fight in Ukraine, official. Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin has been told that his mercenary forces would no longer fight in Ukraine after he refused to sign contracts to bring them under the Russian Defense Ministry, a senior lawmaker said. Colonel General Andrei Kartapolov, who chairs the lower house of Parliament's Defense Committee, said the trigger for Saturday's mutiny was Prigozhin's disagreement with a demand by the Defense Ministry that his group sign contracts. As you know, a few days before the attempted mutiny, the Defense Ministry said that all formations performing combat tasks must sign contracts with the Defense Ministry, said Kartapolov. Everyone started to implement this decision, everyone except Mr. Prigozhin. Kartapolov added that after Prigozhin's refusal to sign the contracts, he had been told that his mercenaries would no longer fight in Ukraine and therefore would not receive state money. Swedish PM to speak to Hungarian counterpart about NATO. Sweden's Prime Minister aims to talk to his Hungarian counterpart on Thursday after reports that Budapest would delay the ratification of Sweden's NATO membership. I have earlier been informed that they don't plan to delay anything about the Swedish NATO membership and I will surely get the chance to exchange a few words with Viktor Orban here today, Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said. I just want to discuss with him and ask him if earlier messages are still valid, he told reporters in Brussels. At least 2 Ukrainian generals killed in Kramatorsk attack, RIA. Russia's Ministry of Defense says 2 Ukrainian generals and up to 50 Ukrainian military officers were killed in a missile strike in Kramatorsk on Tuesday, the Russian RIA news agency reports. Ukrainian officials have said 12 people were killed and 60 hurt when a Russian missile slammed into a crowded restaurant in the city. Asked about the strike, Russia said it attacked only military targets, not civilians, adding that a temporary Ukrainian army command post had been hit. Ukraine begins nuclear disaster drills, Kremlin warns of provocations. Ukraine has begun nuclear disaster response drills near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, regional officials say. Similar exercises started in the neighboring Kherson region, its governor, Oleksandr Prokudin, said. The purpose of the event is to coordinate the actions of all services in case of a real threat of an emergency situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, he said on Telegram, urging residents to remain calm. Prokudin said officials and civil defense forces were working jointly on scenarios that might follow a nuclear disaster, including how to inform and evacuate people. On Thursday, the Kremlin said there was a constant threat of provocations from the Ukrainian side at the plant. The Kremlin declines to answer questions about General Surovikin. The Kremlin declined to answer questions about Russian General Sergei Surovikin, whose status and location are unknown since the Wagner Group's aborted rebellion. Asked by reporters if the Kremlin could clarify the situation with Surovikin, spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "No, unfortunately not. So I recommend that you contact the Defense Ministry, this is its prerogative." When a reporter asked if Putin still continued to trust Surovikin, Peskov said, "He is the Supreme Commander-in-Chief and he works with the Defense Minister and with the Chief of the General Staff." Nicknamed General Armageddon by the Russian press for his aggressive tactics in the Syrian conflict, Surovikin has been absent from view since Saturday, when he appeared in a video appealing to the Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. Hungarian parliament rejects vote on Sweden's NATO aims. Hungary's parliament has rejected a proposal to schedule a vote on the certification of Sweden's NATO membership for next week, a politician from the opposition Democratic Coalition, DK, party said. Agnes Vadai told the Reuters news agency that lawmakers of the ruling Fidesz and Christian Democrat parties did not support putting the vote on the agenda for next week's plenary session. She said it was obvious Fidesz would decide when to schedule the vote depending on Turkey's stance. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán moves in tandem with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, ignoring Hungarian sovereignty and breaking the unity of NATO, she said. As it stands today, there won't be a ratification before the NATO summit. Sweden is expecting to join the military alliance by the July 11-12 NATO summit in Lithuania. The Kremlin says there is a threat of provocations at nuclear plant. The Kremlin says there was a constant threat of provocations from the Ukrainian side regarding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said inspectors had recently been at the site to check on the safety of the plant. The UN Atomic Energy Agency has frequently appealed to both sides to avoid shelling near Europe's largest nuclear plant. Russians strongly support military operation in Ukraine, Kremlin. The Kremlin says its data suggests there is continued strong support among Russians for the special military operation in Ukraine and President Vladimir Putin. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was responding to a question about a survey suggesting an equal number of people supported negotiations to end the conflict to those who favored continuing it. The data we have show something quite different, dominant support for the special military operation and for the president, said Peskov. The main thing for Russians is achieving the goals before us which were formulated by the president, Peskov said. Wagner fighters shot down Russian aircraft, British MOD. The British Ministry of Defence, MOD, says Wagner Group fighters shot down Russian military helicopters and an Ilyushin Il-22M airborne command post aircraft during their rebellion. In its daily briefing, the MOD said, these special mission aircraft have played a key role in orchestrating Russian forces in their war against Ukraine. The loss of this aircraft is likely to have a negative impact on Russian air and land operations. In the short term, the psychological shock of losing a large number of aircrew in this manner will almost certainly damage morale within the Russian aerospace force. The update added that the loss of aircraft would likely undermine Russia's ability to command and coordinate its forces, particularly during periods of high-tempo operations. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.